Let's talk about Qigong today and Qi.
Okay.
And I think I remember you saying that Taoists were the first to, let's say, sort of systematize or codify Qi as a, or to name it, maybe we could say.
Well, most of the work on Qi was done by Taoists. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Okay.
And however, if you would really have to say it was done by proto-Taoists, and is one of the reasons that Taoists became Taoist.
Oh, yeah.
Because it predates the Zhou period, and the word Taoism and kind of the collected behaviors of Taoism didn't really start to congeal until the later Zhou. So in the Four Ascendant has Zhou roots. It draws from a series of basically immigrants from the Zhou Empire that moved east.
So Qi, the concept of Qi, is pivotal to Taoism.
You really can't have Taoism without having an idea of Qi. Otherwise, it becomes an intellectual concept. And Qi is also, within the Four Ascendant, Qi is the third sphere. So your first sphere is the social sphere, which is the sphere effectively of talk. And also trade falls in there, the talking arts fall in there, different things like that. And then you have the martial sphere, which is the sphere of the body and of force together. But strangely enough, it also overlaps into physical exercise, health, elements like that.
Okay, yeah.
The third sphere is Qi, and Qi is the first time that humans are dealing with the universe outside of themselves. And that's why it's such a pivotal element. So in the first two realms, or the first two spheres, you have it, a person is effectively just dealing with other people. So we don't think of applying, for example, the second sphere, which is the martial sphere, against nature. You don't assemble the military in order to hunt a bear or to fight a mountain. Funny, because there are classic stories of that misapplication. But then the other thing is the sphere of talk, the social sphere, talk, trade, kind of the fabric of human interaction. Those are all about humans kind of dealing with humans.
Yeah.
And then as we move into Qi, it's the opportunity for a human to interact with non-human forces for the very first time. As we have initially, Qigong is the study of Qi within yourself, but then as it expands, as your knowledge and capability expand, it's about the knowledge of the energy around you as much as it is the energy within you. So it's the first exposure, let's say, to the internal-external world relationship, different things like that. So essentially, if you can't pass through the knowledge of the Qi sphere, you're not really going to have access to the knowledge of the Tao sphere. And
oh, I see, yeah. So they're like steps.
They're effectively steps with different degrees of motion. So you can be in the social sphere simply by sitting in one place, and nowadays doing this repeatedly on something, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so there's no real motion or internal action, or for some people, no self-awareness. The second sphere, by definition, the martial sphere, the sphere of body, you must engage it.
Yeah.
So it must be moved around. So we go from theoretically static to now being able to move around, to now expanding out into a universe where you are interacting with things other than yourself. Now the body does that, of course, to a certain extent, but the Qi of the world is about dealing with the rules of energy and how we are impacted and shaped by that. So it's a stepwise progress. Now, if you want to look at interacting with the Tao, that is a greater element of difficulty, primarily because it's a different way of acting and a greater degree of sensitivity. So in the beginning, you don't need any sensitivity at all, right?
Oh,
you're just doing this. Then you need a little bit
you're
more.
You're also talking to people. I mean, it hasn't always been screens.
Well, let's say the social sphere is smaller than it once was. And so it's expanded as we roll the clock back. But then the next range of activity, it increases again, and then the next range, and then the next range. If you're dealing with the fourth sphere, of course, you're dealing with the theoretical infinite.
Of everything.
Right. So it's this gradual increase of size.
So does each sphere fit inside the other one? I mean, does the more restrictive spheres fit inside the next larger one?
Now, the classic doctrinal diagram is that the Tao sphere is all encompassing and the other three spheres sit inside of it. And so...
But not inside each other?
That's correct.
Okay, I see.
Because otherwise you'd have like a sippy cup type of thing going on. You know, when you take a sippy cup, you fold it out and it expands.
Oh, that kind, yes.
Yeah, that kind. So.
Russian dolls.
Yeah, kind of like that. So, but it's not like that. It's essentially a large container occupied by the other three spheres. And usually they're represented by circles of increasing size.
Okay.
So the social sphere is your smallest one, Marshall's the second, Qi is the third, and you go through there. Then there are specific rules that bind their interaction, but it's kind of abstract. I'm not sure if that would be of much interest. So
let's get back to Qi. Now, I'm gonna take you back to that mountain and bear example, because you said we wouldn't raise an army to fight a mountain, which sounds perfectly reasonable, but does that mean that if you wanted to fight a mountain, you would have to engage the sphere of Qi? And would you do that? And could you do that? Why would you do that?
I think there are too many variables in that.
Oh, you use the example I wanted to.
So you're dealing with the natural world. The Marshall sphere is typically for human to human. And if you're dealing with the natural world, you're no longer dealing with human to human. And so you are applying body to it, but part of it is that each sphere has its own set of capabilities. So for example, one of the rules of the spheres is that as you rise up through the order of the spheres, each one is capable of destroying anything that's in the prior sphere. Now, when we talk about that, the problem is it's interpreted in the human context. So we think of overwhelming or defeating through the application of some different form of force in order to cause that change.
When we think of destruction, we think of bombs and breaking things.
Right, and that's not the case. It's the application of the power of a given sphere that overwhelms the more minor sphere in each one of those circumstances, unless of course you're dealing with the Marshall sphere, and then it is bombs.
Yes, it's that's the first example, right? That the Marshall sphere can overtake the social sphere.
Yeah, no matter what you do within the social sphere, the Marshall sphere can override it.
Right.
And it's a basic truism to keep in mind. If you're trying to solve something within the social sphere, it's like, well, all of that works until somebody decides they're not going to follow that rule and use force instead.
So what we're saying is that the sphere of Qi can overcome the sphere of Marshall.
Yes.
That's the next step.
But not by applying force to it, because then it would actually be using the Marshall for it.
That's not the language of the sphere of Qi.
Right. And so Yeah, I mean, that's the basic rule of the spheres.
But what would that look like? Hello.
Does this take you back to the road that's behind the ice rink?
Yes. It takes you back to the parking lot, and then you have to go through the parking lot and then turn right down that little road.
The shorter way?
Yes, definitely. This is much longer.
We got her.
But it
Okay.
for sure takes us back to that point.
Yes, it does.
Oh, yeah.
All right. What would overcoming the Marshall sphere with the Qi sphere look like?
Well, now we're starting to get into the I Ching. So basically, if we were thinking about overcoming something, normally we think of this in terms of conflict. And so we sit
Right.
back and go, well, the Marshall sphere obviously has to
Yeah.
dominate within conflict. That's if the Marshall sphere can control the rules
Ah, yes.
of the engagement as you
Right.
go through. What if the Qi sphere simply removes the conflict?
Oh,
So if the people are reordered or the compelling reason behind the conflict is eliminated, then the power that's possessed by the Marshall sphere is never allowed to be brought to bear. So, because if you in fact try to fight any sphere in its own sphere, it has dominance.
because it has its own set of rules
Right.
that you can't even deal with.
And so if you have the social sphere, and let's say you're being bested in talk or a negotiation,
Right.
you decide to solve it by picking up a stick and bonking the person in the head.
I win
You are losing within the social sphere.
because you're breaking the rules.
Well, no, you're losing in the social sphere because you are following the rules of the social sphere.
Oh, you mean before the stick?
Before the stick.
Yes.
And since you're being defeated in that avenue, what do? Is you pull on your strength, which we would say would be the sphere of the body, and instead use that to overwhelm
Yes.
the situation that exists there. And
God,
so
I'm changing the rules.
many times people think of the Qi sphere solution would be to Jedi the thing and apply, energy bolts to it, or
Right.
go, Dragon Ball Z on the situation. And that's the application of force. It's just a different application.
Oh, it's like a magical Marshall.
Right. And so when you're looking at that, is it theoretically in the Qi sphere? Yes. But the reason you don't see that solution is because that solution set doesn't exist. It only exists within the physics and within the limited imagination of the person being involved. If you can, by sensitivity to the flow of energy, isolate the underlying components for the conflict or the tension or the lack of dominance or the lack of the ability to undermine a thing, and then you apply the necessary energy to achieving that,
Yes.
which can actually be very limited in its need, so you don't have to apply a lot of energy. You apply some energy. And then you achieve a solution that never engages the force sphere.
Yes.
Now, the person in the force sphere would want to try to solve it using its particular area of dominance, as the social person would want to try to solve it
Right. But
by using their particular area of
not going
dominance.
to happen.
And so the key becomes isolating that particular thing and then applying the needed energy to cause it to change.
And it looks like magic because you've used this higher level of skill that's completely alien to the lower sphere. And you're like,
Yes.
right.
And in fact, the classics talk about that all the time. The person does nothing, yet the multitude is accomplished. And reality, that's referring to the Tao itself, but the application of the forces of the sphere type
Yeah.
actually looks persistently like that.
Yes.
So for example,
Oh, yeah, even in the social versus martial, the social person is going to go, wait, what did you just do?
yeah, I was winning. How
Yeah.
did I just suddenly lose? Well, you didn't actually lose, you were destroyed.
Yes.
That is always the thing to keep in mind. So you weren't losing within your own sphere, your presence within the greater collection was simply destroyed. And the same thing happens within the martial. You're not using Qi to defeat the martial, you are destroying it by taking its basic underlying structure and dismantling it.
Yes.
And of course, the Tao can dismantle any of those components using, let's say, a similar approach.
Well, it can use anything it wants.
Exactly, but it can use the fundamental applications of things, creation. So for example, the solution to a particular, let's just call it conflict for now, can be the introduction of an entirely new approach, a new thing, a new way of thinking that causes everything else to collapse. And so those would be more human ways of expressing it.
Yeah.
The I Ching actually indicates what type of application should be made within a given situation.
Oh.
Whether or not it should be from one sphere or another sphere.
Oh my gosh.
And so sometimes the solution can be, for example, withdraw. And it becomes that, well, how can withdraw solve this situation?
Yeah.
Well, the person's primed for a particular form of activity, has committed resources to it, is mentally and emotionally committed to it. You withdraw and allow them to spend themselves. And then, when the circumstance favors you, you step back in and apply the needed, whatever it happens to be,
Yeah.
recommended, and that allows you to overcome their particular position or to synthesize it. So we're expressing in terms of conflict, and that by talking in conflict, we tend to promote a position which promotes conflict.
Right.
But sometimes it can be simply absorbing them. It can be, and by that I mean they become converted to your position. And so instead of there being a conflict, the enemy has become the ally. And so that can be the change that's called for in a given circumstance. It can be because the compelling reason behind a particular action is simply removed. And we look at it and go, well, that was achieved. And so it's not that conflict is not the answer at all. It's that it's one answer of many possible answers that can exist.
Not always the best answer.
Right, you select the thing which best fits the situation and, let's say, least consumes your resources.
Yeah. Now, if you are utilizing the I Ching, do you automatically have the upper hand because you are operating within the realm of the sphere of Qi?
Well, if you're using the I Ching, you're operating within the realm of the sphere of Tao. And so you're using your direct interaction with the Tao to gain effectively intelligence and planning capability. And so that becomes more difficult to counteract, unless of course the other person's doing the same thing as you are, which would be a classical situation that would have occurred actually quite commonly. So,
That's what we were talking about before. The two generals have their I Ching thrower guys, and they're actually battling on that extra level.
yes. And you would also, in modern terminology, sometimes it's the difference between a short game and a long game. Those have become popular strategic words. And so the long game is effectively the person is systematically outwitting you in order to achieve a particular end. And again, that end doesn't necessarily have to be conflict. That end can be sitting back and going, okay, I've moved this person from being an enemy to being an ally. Or I've moved this person from being in a position of advantage to to being in a neutral position. Or I simply waited and they moved themselves to
Oh.
a bad position, whereas I ended up in a better position. So knowing when to contain, when to expand, those are all critical decisions that are partly driven by the sphere of action and also partly driven by how you've assessed that given situation. So you can end up winning by apparently doing nothing. But what you've really done is to play a longer game than the other person wanted to play. And most times when people are pursuing a forced solution, that's because that's what they see.
Yeah.
And it's a very short-term type of solution set.
Oh, we're faced with that all the time.
Yeah, it's a fundamental temptation. Most humans are short-term humans. They don't have a long planning horizon. And tools like the I Ching encourage a person to take a longer horizon for action, as it's not as great of a mystery to them. So you can see let's say if you're pursuing the I Ching, and the I Ching's consistently indicating to you to hold your hand, meaning don't do anything.
Okay.
And you don't understand why that is. You look at it and go, well, I have advantage now,
Yeah,
or I have urgency now, and I need to undertake this action right now.
Right.
But instead, it says, don't do a thing. Now, if you are obedient, and that has different social implications, but if you are obedient to the I Ching, and you go, you know what? I said I was going to follow it, I'm going to follow it. So you follow it, and you hold your hand. And you realize as things play out, you didn't properly assess the situation. Other factors came in, changed that circumstance, but now because you've held your hand, you are in a much better position than you were before. And you can win, if you're looking for win, with minimal effort on your part. And that's where you start getting magical solutions, is that quite literally you just do the right thing at the right time.
Back to sure.
Right. Fundamental component of Taoism is learning when to apply the proper type of action in a given situation. When you've done that, then you get magical solutions. And that can radiate all throughout your life. And probably the most frustrating thing about it is understanding that there are large times when you can't do anything. Meaning you may be tempted to do something, and you sit around going, I've got to do something, I've got to do something. And sometimes you'll think to yourself, well, I'm just paralyzed by fear, or I'm paralyzed by a lack of resource.
Oh, you come up with an excuse.
Paralyzed by blah, blah, blah. And because I should be doing blah.
Right.
But what you might actually be doing is intuitively feeling that this is not the proper time to act. And the only way to know that is, one, in retrospect.
Yeah.
You look at it and go, yeah, that was the right thing to do at the right time, even though I wanted to do this or I wanted to do that. I thought I was afraid.
Yeah.
I thought I didn't have the stuff for it.
Yeah.
And perhaps both of those things are true, but at the same time, it was also the time to not do anything. And it was the time to hold your hand and to watch things play out.
Wow.
And that can be very difficult for a person, as the urge to do something can be so great that you just do stupid things.
Because it feels like you have to do something to make something happen, but maybe not doing, there's not doing. Maybe not doing fits into the puzzle better.
That term would only partly apply in that circumstance.
But
you are not doing something, and you are allowing things to move without your judgment or intrusion upon it. So that is not doing. You are relying upon time and place, so that fits within the realm of not doing.
Okay. I don't want to mess it up. Let's take a step back to Qigong. So now we know the realm of Qi is very powerful. Why do we engage in Qigong, and where did it come from?
Well, I mean, it's part of the universe. in a nutshell, Qi is the energy of life.
But the practice of Qigong,
I don't know what you're saying.
what do we gain and what is the advantage of practicing the, you know, the Qigong, the postures, and the going right back to very,
Live longer, feel better.
oh, because we're relating to Qi.
Well, we operate on Qi. It's the energy of life.
Okay.
So I mean, that's the answer. So,
So it's kind of like,
without me
well,
getting out systematic diagrams and going through the
okay,
process, that's basically it. It's
but it's as simple as, well, why do we eat? To
yeah.
live longer and feel better.
Live longer, feel better.
Where did the postures, how are they devised?
Well, one of the things we have to keep in mind is, like I've oftentimes said about enlightenment, the borrowed term enlightenment, is that it's a natural state of the human. Humans naturally use Qi all day, every single day. And so let's say, for example, you and I were walking along this pathway, and many humans can walk. They don't have to make a huge effort to do so.
Right.
They didn't have to make a huge effort to learn how to do so, right? You learn
Right.
it as a
Yeah.
infant transitioning to being a toddler.
Yeah.
And you need a little bit of stimulus in order to cause that process to occur, but
Yeah.
overall it's a natural process.
A little support here and there, but it's kind of a byproduct of just growing up.
Right, so it's a natural process. However, there's a lot of difference between somebody knowing how to walk and like one of the Olympic runners running past us right now. And so there's a certain amount of specialization, training, exploration that comes from that.
Yes, right.
Qigong is basically learning how to walk, sometimes again for an individual, because they need to recover. Sometimes it is a matter of learning to walk better, because let's say they enjoy taking a park stroll, and their stroll is longer than they can comfortably do.
Oh, I see, yes.
And so for that reason, they learn to walk better. Sometimes they want to be that Olympic athlete.
Yes.
So they have to learn to make that transition into walking real fast, and then of course turning it into running, and then of course turning it into a systematic running,
Yeah.
and then going from there. So like any natural process, Qigong is learned in the same fashion. Now if you're asking where the roots of that training came from, it likely had a couple of roots to it, but one of the very earliest ones was shamanistic dancing.
Oh,
And so, for example, we're in a section of the country within the Southwest within America. So 30% of our viewers are not from the US.
Oh.
And so this area has a large Native American populations, primarily Navajo and Hopi. And you go a little bit south, you have Apache, and actually a little bit east of here, I believe, as well. And what that leads to is that people become familiar with the traditional dances that are performed by the native populations, some of which look very much like Qigong, and some of which are pretty much exactly the same between the two. What happened with Qigong is that shamanistic dancing was segmented and defined according to the power that it could generate.
oh,
And so as it became Taoist, it became deliberately explored, deliberately tested, deliberately used in the early shamanistic supernatural combat elements. So there was just a different process that was applied to those components. Early Qigong was actually not health building, it was power building. Health building came later because it was an issue of like, well, maybe if I'm doing all this stuff for building myself up to a tremendous energy level, I should at least have basic health down. Because from the Taoist standpoint, so let's say the early proto-Taoist shamanistic approaches were not at all health building, they were power building.
Right, okay, because they had something to do, and they had to get a lot of power to do it.
Yes, and they had to get it fast,
Ooh.
and they had to get it at the highest possible level they could do that.
And maintain it.
Right, and the problem is that the human system has a very difficult time sustaining itself under that degree of energy. It can be modified very gradually over time, but gradual was not part of the early process.
Okay.
As I've said in many of my Qigong lectures to students, the early shamanistic approaches are about ramming as much qi down your qi hole as you can possibly get.
Oh my goodness.
And then, after that, ramming more down your qi hole. So you're just stuffed with it, and the system starts to tear apart underneath it. And so the lifespan actually becomes limited, as does your ability to hold together your own sanity, because the mind starts to race in incoherent fashions. The person actually breaks apart underneath that amount of energy.
But while you're at that peak, you're a super demon soldier.
You are. You're also crazy.
Which, you know,
helps out with the whole process. So.
It might be okay.
But then over time, people started to say, well, maybe we don't have to do it like this.
Oh.
Maybe we can take this energy of life and actually use it to extend our life and health. And so then the other branches developed. But the early processes were essentially built around that early shamanism, a large developmental force being shamanistic dancing.
Nice.
And then basically isolating and parsing out parts of those maneuvers because they would either balance or charge the system in some fashion.
Yeah. In certain parts of the system, like there's a posture for, you know, lungs, and so they would, maybe that was part of a bigger dance, and they realized, oh, if I do this, my lungs feel better. Or is that reasonable?
It was essentially trial and error, but you know, the health component took time. I would say mostly there are things that build the raw qi within the person to a tremendous level, and also allow the person to start dealing with the universe. So moving from the internal world to the external world.
That's right.
Where there are massive concentrations of qi, and learning to deal with those particular things, set up a relationship with them, and bring those into your body in some fashion so that you can build yourself up to an even higher level. As more qi meant essentially you're going to live for a longer period of time until you destroyed yourself, in which case then you weren't going to be living anymore. But that was essentially the trade-off. So if you're talking about the very early roots, that's the very early roots. And so the shamanistic methodology is still known at the esoteric level. So the esoteric or the adept level, the things that ultimately developed are many of those techniques refined so that they are safer and are capable of building the individual up to a high enough level to handle that amount of qi. Tedious.
Oh, because it's gradual.
Yeah. Frustrating and dangerous, but nowhere near the level of old danger. No great power comes without danger. So if you want a danger-free life, then you need to live in a world that is effectively built by other people, and you have your particular spot in it.